Hello everyone, welcome to the video lecture series of C programming language. We are in our lecture number 16. In this lecture, let us continue the learning of different types of control statements. Up to our last video, we learned about different types of selection statements, whereas part of that, we learned about 4 categories of if statement and also we learned about switch statement. Okay, so before moving further, I request you all to go through that video to learn about these selection statements with syntax and example. So today's class we'll be learning in detail about what actually iterative statements are, right? So let us start with this concept. Now what actually iterative statements are, these are also called as looping statements or repetition statements. In this category what happens is, it will check one condition and after evaluating that condition you will be either getting true or false condition, and if the condition is true the statements will be executed, and after executing the statement it will not terminate the loop there, again it will go back to that condition and it will check that. So the looping statements will be executed, or it will execute block of statements or a single statement multiple times until the condition becomes false. So here the complete controlling will be under a Boolean expression. We need to write as part of the condition a Boolean expression, where a Boolean expression will be giving either true value or a false value. That means in turn we can say it is a non-zero value or a zero value. Got it? So we have 3 types of iterative statements, while, do while and for. So in this lecture we will be learning in detail about what actually this while loop is. So let us see the first one, while loop. So the name itself, it is telling loop is nothing but we want to execute a group of statements which are referred as block depending upon the condition more than once, right? So the syntax will be like this. We'll be having a keyword called while, and then all the letters are of small letter while, and then within the parenthesis we need to write down the expression here, and this expression will be either giving the true value or the false value. Now what happens if this expression, whatever we call this as a condition, if it is true, then it will enter into this while loop and this block of statements will be executed. Observe here, if you have a single statement only, no need to put the parenthesis, but if you have more than one statement, we need to mark them as a block, so we need to put this flower braces like this, right? So if the expression is true, these statements will be executed. Now after executing these statements, the control will go back to this condition again. That means this condition, whichever expression we write here, that will be evaluated, and if it is true again, then the statements will be executed again. Right? Now after executing these statements, again it will go back to this condition. So this is a repetition process until the condition becomes false. Now once the condition becomes false, it will come out of this loop and it will come out of this loop, and the statements whatever we have here, that will be executed. So until and unless the condition becomes false, it will be executing this block of statements. So that's why it is called as a repetitive statement. So that's why it is called as an iterative or looping statement. Right? So, but here as at the time of entering into the block, we are checking the condition. That's why this while loop is called as an entry controlled loop. You need to understand this one. At the time of entering into this block, it will be checking this condition. That's why it is called as entry control loop. Right? Now let us draw the flowchart for this one. This is the syntax what we learned, and the flowchart will be like this. First we need to check the condition. That means whatever expression we have, that need to be evaluated first, and after evaluating this one, we will be having 2 options, either true option or a false option. Suppose if you have a true option, it will enter into this block and this block of statements will be executed, and after evaluating that block, again the control will go back to this condition evaluation. That is what we learned in the previous slide. Now we have the other option also, which is false. If this condition is false, then it will bypass these block of statements and it will continue executing the next statement whichever we have here. Right? This is the flowchart for our while loop. Now let us learn a simple example here. If you see here an example where I have taken a count variable, and that count variable is initialized to 0, and then the count value will be checked with the value called 2, as this one is our condition in our while, and if this condition is satisfied, we will be executing these statements, and again we will be going back to this condition checking. So let us see how these statements will be executed. So initially what happens, the count will be initialized to 0. After that we will be checking the condition. So our count is 0, which is less than 2, which is true. So it will enter into our block. So you will be getting the first line of code as output hello world. After that the count will be incremented. Now our count value will be 1. Now after evaluating this count value, again it will go back to the condition checking. 1 is less than 2, which is true, so it will go back into this block of statements, and you will be getting second line of output as hello world, and you will be getting you will be incrementing this count value, which is 2 now. Now after executing this statement, again this is the end of this one, so it will go back to the condition checking. So count value, which is 2, is less than 2, which is false now, so it will bypass this one and it will come here, and whatever statement you have here, that will be executed, which is nothing but we will be exiting from the loop. Got it? So this is how the statements will be executed and how the condition will be evaluated. So the same example I have executed, and you will be getting the output called hello world 2 times, because we have given a condition called less than 2 and the count value is 0. And how we are getting this one twice, I have told you in the last slides. Right? So if you take one more example here, initially the count value is 10 and 10 value is less than 2, which is false. Initially the condition is false. That means the condition, if it is initially false, it will obviously will not enter into this loop. So it will come out of this one. So if the condition of a while loop is initially false, then the statements will never be executed. Let us take one more condition. Count value is 0 less than 2, which is the old example, earlier example. If you see here, these statements will be executed. This block is executed twice. So here we can come to a conclusion here, like a block of statements in the while loop can be executed 0 or more times. We can't say it as 1 or more times. Why we are saying it as a 0 or more times? Why? Because initially if the condition is false, then the block of statements will never ever will be executed. Right? So we can say a body of a while loop will be executed either 0 times or 0, or we can also say it can be executed more number of times. Right? One more example, if you see here, one more case. Here I have taken the count value as 1. Now initially 1 is less than 25, which is true, and it will print the count value. And what happens? We are decrementing the count value. That means 1 minus 1 will be 0. Again it will go back here. 0 is less than 25, which is again true. It will enter into this block. You will be getting the count value. Again we are decrementing the count value, which is minus 1. It will go back here. Minus 1 is less than 25. Now if you observe this example, we are decrementing. As we are decrementing the count value, we are getting the condition always true, because of which the loop will be continuing executing. Continuously it will be executing this loop. So such a thing is called as an infinity loop. So when such a case occurs, nothing is in our hands. We need to be forcefully interrupting the program execution. We can't stop the execution, but if you want to stop the execution, because we have entered into the while loop, we need to be forcefully interrupting the execution of our program. So in this case, we need to double check our logic whenever we are using the while loop, whether we have written a loop which will make us to enter into this infinite loop. So we should not write any loop which will enter us into the while loop. So in such a case, we need to forcefully interrupt our program execution. So double check your logic, whatever you have written. Right? So with this, we have come to an end of our while loop, where we have learned while is a keyword, and we learned the syntax behind this while loop, and we also learned how to write down the code using this while loop, and we have seen how the block of statements will be executed. I'll repeat once again. If the condition is true, then the block of statements will be executed and this is a repetition process until the condition becomes false. So that's why this while loop is called as an entry control loop. Okay, so with this we'll come to an end of our today's class. In the next class we'll be learning about this do while, how it can be used in our programming. So let us all meet in our next lecture. Until then, thank you all of you.